Iron Cross, man-to-man combat. Let's see, it is the Russian player turn. It's phase 4, which is reaction movement phase. So I believe I considered moving various German units. Actually, I still want to move these guys, but oh right, I have to remember the order of movement, which I assume applies in reaction movement as well. Meaning, the order is, of course, AFE is moving alone. That's why I moved them. So these guys moved up here, these guys moved here, which I'll talk about in just a minute. Then we have AFE and infantry stacked and moving together. Then we have all other infantry and crude weapon units. That's what I thought. So, okay. So just to review, this is so great. This is exactly what I'm after. The 2 German tanks, they're both buttoned up, which is what I'm going to have them do throughout. I don't see why they wouldn't, realistically speaking, unbutton. But notice that tank 1 here has a performance rating of 10. Tank 2 has a performance rating of 9. So, this is the better crew. This is the less better crew, but still pretty good at 9 anyways. But this differentiation is great, meaning a tank is not a tank is a tank. A tank is not a tank is not a tank. Yeah, whatever. So here, they roll. They easily get their performance check roll equal to 10 or less. So then they move up. They're buttoned up, so they're paying more. They are paying more. Yes, they are paying more to move. Roughly double, although in some cases it's even more than double. I'm looking at the movement and combat effects table. But anyway, they are paying more to move in buttoned up mode. Oh, it's also the reaction fire or reaction movement phase anyways. So that means that they also have, in this case, half the movement allowance as well. So only using half the movement allowance in this reaction movement phase and paying more because they're buttoned up. So basically from here it's 2-4. They only have a movement allowance of 5 in the reaction movement phase. So that's the first one. Talking about AFE movement. They just move straight forward and through clear terrain, so not an issue. This tank, I'll start over, was over here. I believe they spend 1 to change that hex facing to move around the infantry here. I believe they do pay 1 because they didn't move into a new hex. So it's 1, it's 2, 3 because they're buttoned up. So that's 3. Because they moved into a new hex, they get to move 1 hex side for free. Then they go 4, 5. Again, buttoned up. 5, they use up their whole movement allowance for the reaction movement phase. I marked them with a move 4 marker, meaning that they've moved in this fourth phase of the turn. That's how I think it works. Now, there were several things involved here that I want to talk about. So let's talk about. Is there anything unusual about, what do you call it? AFV movement. AFVs. Okay, AFVs. Yeah, normally, except for one exception, they get 10 movement points in the normal movement phase, your friendly movement phase, and 1/2 that, or 5 MPs, in the reaction movement phase. There's one vehicle that's faster, the Russian BT-7M. Alright, then AFVs are never pinned, therefore they have no movement allowance for that morale state. Oh, that's actually it. I thought there might be more to AFV movement. Now let's go to... Oh, and again, just a reminder, AFVs can be immobilized by woods and or marsh. Facing. So tanks definitely are one of the things. AFVs are definitely one of the categories that have facing. So let's go over this again. An AFV must maintain its current facing when moving hex to hex. Even though it's a Even though, despite the wording, I think that means that a tank moves into its forward hex, period. After it moves into each new hex, remember these are only 10-meter hexes though, so that's important to bear in mind. After it moves into each new hex, it may freely change its facing one hex side left or right. It may then turn additional hex sides at a cost of 1 movement point per hex side. So, just in review, let's say, so let's say the tank is in up state or whatever, not buttoned up, and so let's say it's here, AFV up 1 for, yeah, so, but it's still the reaction movement phase, so it still only has 5 movement points. I think it's 1, and then it gets a free 1 hex side turn, 2 free hex side turn, 3 1 hex side turn, and then pays 1 to 4 for another hex side turn, and maybe 1 forward for 5s. So it did a big crazy loop-de-loop there. I think that's how that works. Now that was for an up posture. You're doubling the movement cost in the case of clear terrain for the unit being buttoned up, which is interesting because they don't pay extra for the turning being in. No, I take that back. That's not unusual. That's understandable actually. All right, so back to what else to do. I think that these guys want to move forward. Let's see, they are infantry and down. This is reaction movement, so infantry, I think they have 3. Infantry in the reaction movement phase have 3 movement points, but it's 2 and down, so really it's 1 hex, in effect 1 hex. So we have Lore, who has a performance rating of 10 plus 2 soldiers, so I guess it's still, so it's a leader type movement. They're moving together, so I do think, okay, they roll a 7. They're fine. I think that they do move 1 forward. This is leader directed movement. They are all in the same squad, B squad. Now the question is, well, not the question, now opportunity fire. So, opportunity fire for infantry would only be 3 hexes. So is that different in, alright, so opportunity fire. Is opportunity fire during reaction movement different? Well, actually, it is slightly different. Each unit attempting opportunity fire in the reaction movement phase has its PC dice roll modified by +1. But there's also still the range. Opportunity fire range. Infantry 3 hexes. So actually, they inched forward during the reaction movement phase just fine. 1, 2, 3. I would like the infantry here to reaction fire, but actually they're fine. They don't. They're out of range for. Ow! Wow, that's never happened before. Line of sight does go. Looks like it does go over the house there. Oh wow, that's really close. Machine gun over here. Yep, the Russian medium machine gun has initial range of 15. So if they clear the house, could they do? Well, I'll skip it for this time, but that is a consideration. They moved in the 4th phase, so I'm going to mark them. The moved 4 marker like that. Again, that's importance of machine guns. Having those machine guns to fire. Any other? See, I don't want to move them. They're in by the tree there. Yeah, I'll leave it like that.